I walked outside and found strangers grilling on my patio, Karen waving like it was her pool party, and me, soaked, holding cracked eggs, and one very bad idea brewing. HOA Karen used my pool without notice, so I changed the lock and sold tickets. Part 1, the splash, the smile, and the stranger at my grill. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday morning, 2 grocery bags in hand, half asleep and dreaming of coffee by the pool. That pool wasn't just water and tile. It was my reward. Years of freelance work, late nights, sacrifices. Every inch of that backyard was built from scratch, my piece, my project, my proof that I finally made it. But as I rounded the corner toward my gate, I stopped cold. Splashes, laughter, and not the peaceful kind. Kids, at least a dozen, were cannonballing into my pool like it was a public water park. Towels strewn across my patio chairs, coolers wide open, juice boxes, floaties, muddy footprints. Even my Bluetooth speaker was blasting music I didn't cue. And then I saw her. Karen Miller, oversized sun hat, plastic cup in hand, sunglasses that probably cost more than my entire fence, standing in the center of it all like she owned the place. She turned, spotted me, and lifted her cup like we were old pals meeting for brunch. "Hey, Marcus," she chirped. "Figured with the heat wave, the neighborhood kids could use a swim. I knew you wouldn't mind." I just stood there. My brain stalled. Did I miss an email? A message? Karen walked up like nothing was wrong, smile plastered across her face like it was HOA approved. "We've been talking about using a neutral space for the swim club," she added, gesturing to my backyard. "Yours just made the most sense. Centrally located, already kid-safe. And let's be honest, it boosts morale." Boosts morale? She said it like she was doing me a favor, as if turning my private backyard into a daycare center was some kind of community service. I asked her, flat out, "Did I give permission?" She waved a hand like she was swatting a fly. "No, but the board agreed it was in everyone's best interest. And you're such a nice guy, Marcus. We just knew you'd be fine with it." Then, before I could even respond, splash! One of the kids soaked me head to toe. The grocery bag in my hand dropped. Eggs cracked on the concrete. A soda exploded across my jeans. Karen didn't even blink, didn't apologize. She just turned and shouted, "Careful, kids! Not too close to the edge!" Not for me, for the pool. I walked inside without a word. The house suddenly felt unfamiliar, violated. My sanctuary wasn't mine anymore. I dropped the soggy bags, walked to the window. Outside, more parents had shown up. One guy I'd never seen was using my grill. My grill. Like it was his backyard barbecue. Laughter floated through the air. And then, the sentence that tipped it all. "Isn't Marcus amazing?" Letting us use the pool like this. I didn't answer. I didn't storm out. I opened my laptop, and I started digging. If the board approved this, there had to be a record, meeting minutes, an announcement, a vote. Something. But there was nothing. No scheduled swim events, no permission logs, no official anything, and right there, bold, clear, in the HOA bylaws. Private property cannot be used for community events without the owner's written consent, and 72 hours notice to all residents. This wasn't just rude, it was a violation, and Karen had no idea that her clipboard empire was about to crack. Part 2, the flyer, the fence, and the lie that sealed it. The next morning, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a man I'd never seen before, mid-30s, dad vibe, polite smile. "Hey," he said, "just checking if the pool's open today. My wife and kids had such a blast last weekend." I blinked. Excuse me? He held up a folded piece of paper, a flyer, printed, branded, HOA letterhead, my address in bold. Free Family Swim Club, Saturdays and Sundays at Marcus's Pool. Hosted by HOA Chairwoman Karen Miller. I stared at it. My stomach dropped. It was official looking, neat borders, even a calendar icon in the corner. She said it was all approved, the man added. Said you were cool with it. I didn't answer. I just took the flyer and shut the door gently. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table, hands shaking, heart thudding like a war drum. I wasn't just being used, I was being branded. And Karen? She wasn't done. My phone buzzed. A neighbor texted, "Thanks for opening the pool again. My daughter made a new friend." Another message. "You're a hero, Marcus." So generous. Generous? I never gave anything. And now, I was being called the community MVP for letting a neighborhood dictator commandeer my backyard. But that's when something inside me snapped. I wasn't just going to say no. I was going to say it. Loudly. Not with shouting. With proof. With cameras. With locks. And maybe with a little fun. Because if they thought this was a free ride, they were about to learn the cost of entitlement. Part 3. The lock, the camera, and the Saturday showdown. All week I planned. Every evening after work, I combed through HOA bylaws like a lawyer prepping for trial. Section 14.2. No community events on private property without owner consent. Section 8.7. Property boundaries can't be violated. Section 11.3. Homeowners may install security cameras facing communal areas as long as they don't point inside private residences. Perfect. By Thursday, I had 3 motion-activated cameras installed. One on the gate, one on the patio, one facing the entire pool. Friday morning, I added the kicker, a new lock on the gate. Keypad entry, code changed daily. And on the gate, I hung a sign. Private property, trespassers will be reported. Then I waited. Saturday came hot and early. By 9 a.m., the first SUV rolled up. Kids in swimsuits, towels in hand, parents unloading coolers. Karen arrived 10 minutes later. Sun hat, clipboard, a new batch of flyers tucked under her arm. She marched to the gate, tugged the handle. It didn't move. She frowned, tugged again. Still locked. Then she spotted me. I was on the porch, coffee in hand, camera rolling. She stormed over. "Marcus, can you open the gate? We've got a full group today." I sipped my coffee. "No." She blinked. "Excuse me?" I stood, walked to the fence. "This isn't a public pool, and you're done using my property without permission." She scoffed. "The community expects this. You can't just—" I pointed at the camera. "I can, and I did. Now leave, before I file for trespassing." Her jaw clenched. Behind her, the crowd began murmuring. I let the silence hang, then turned around and went back inside. Karen didn't know it yet, but her HOA empire was about to collapse. Part 4. The emails, the edits, and the plan to push back. Karen didn't show up Sunday, but someone else did. A different neighbor, older guy, knocked on my door with a confused look. "Hey, I heard the pool was closed yesterday. Everything okay?" I handed him a flyer. My flyer. One I had printed with bold red text. Private property. No unauthorized events. He read it, nodded slowly, then muttered, "Figures. That woman's always pushing her luck." And just like that, it started. The quiet support. The whispers from behind the fences. People were tired of Karen. They just needed someone to stand first. And now, that was me. So I doubled down. I compiled footage, built a folder, labeled it PROOF, because if Karen wanted a war, she was getting one, on paper, and on record. Part 5. The meeting, the microphone, and the moment it all turned. Wednesday night came fast. The emergency HOA meeting was packed, more than I'd ever seen. Karen sat at the head, clipboard ready, lips tight. She didn't look at me. Didn't have to, everyone already knew. I stepped up when called, plugged in my laptop, and with one click, the projector lit up with a freeze frame. My pool, overrun, packed with strangers. This, I said, voice calm, was my backyard. Used without permission. Promoted by someone who never asked. I flipped through slides, flyers, screenshots, footage. Karen shifted. Then I dropped the bomb. Venmo screenshots, contributions sent directly to her. Unreported, unauthorized. Karen stood, shouted, spun a story about community and service. But the room? Silent. Dana, the board secretary, leaned forward. Karen, did you collect money for these events? Karen stammered. Dana didn't blink. Then she said what everyone was thinking. This isn't leadership, it's misuse of power. By the end of the night, a vote was held. Karen, removed as HOA chair, suspended from future event planning. I walked out to a round of quiet applause. No cheering, no victory lap, just respect. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about taking back the truth. And Karen finally learned she couldn't fake authority. On someone else's land. Part 6. The return, the rumor, and the pool that fought back. A week passed. Quiet. Too quiet. Karen hadn't made a peep. No flyers, no porch yoga, no clipboard crusades. But peace in Lakeside Pines? It never lasts long. Saturday morning, I was trimming the hedge when I heard it. Whispers. A couple walking past my fence. Heard he charged people last week. That can't be right, the woman said. Karen said he was punishing kids. Punishing? Now I was the villain? By noon, more whispers. By 3 p.m., someone had left a note in my mailbox. You used to be such a generous neighbor. Shame it ended this way. That was it. Karen couldn't control the HOA anymore. So now she was rewriting the story in the shadows. But here's the thing about lies. They shrivel when exposed to light. So I opened my laptop, and I wrote an open letter, printed 50 copies, taped them to the community board, the mailbox stand, the dog park gate, everywhere her flyers used to live. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was facts. Karen used my pool without permission. Lied about getting approval. Collected money under the table. And violated multiple HOA rules. I attached a QR code. It linked to a folder with evidence, flyers, screenshots, footage, the works. By Monday, the shift was obvious. Neighbors waved again. Someone left cookies on my porch with a sticky note. Thanks for standing up for all of us. Karen? She stayed silent. But for once, she was the one hiding behind the fence. And me? I dipped my feet into my pool that evening. Water still, sky gold. For the first time in weeks, it felt like mine again. Because this fight wasn't about noise, it was about boundaries. And now, they were crystal clear. Part 7. The hearing, the hammer, and the day the clipboard snapped. Wednesday came, and with it, the meeting. Not a casual HOA gathering this time. This was official. They booked the community hall, chairs lined up like courtroom pews, a projector screen in front, and that infamous table with nameplates. Karen's was already there, straightened, polished, empty. I arrived with my flash drive, footage queued, timeline prepared, receipts labeled by exhibit letter. This wasn't a grudge anymore, it was a presentation. Neighbors filled the room, some curious, some loyal, some just ready to see fireworks. The board opened the floor. Today's topic, Alleged misuse of private property for HOA events. I stepped up, clicked the remote, and let the evidence roll. Footage of kids jumping into my pool. Karen handing out swim rings. Her cousin showing a property while calling the view amenity access. Murmurs grew louder with each slide. Then, the flyers. Doctored HOA logos. My address printed under Free Community Swim. Karen's signature at the bottom. Gasps, whispers, someone even laughed. I rapped with my open letter, the QR code, the donations Karen never reported. Then I said nothing, just stood and waited. Karen finally walked in, late, flustered, no clipboard, just a folder, clutched tight. She tried to explain, blamed confusion, blamed me, blamed community expectations. But the room wasn't buying it. When the board voted, it was unanimous. Karen Miller, officially removed from HOA leadership, stripped of all committee powers, and barred from organizing future events. The hammer came down, not with drama, but with clarity. And as Karen turned to leave, the folder in her arms fell open. Flyers spilled out, half crumpled, useless now. She didn't pick them up. I did. One last time. I handed her the truth she never wanted to carry, and when she looked at me, there was no smugness, no glare, just the weight of consequence. Part 8. The HOA meeting and the mic drop that changed everything. Wednesday night came with that strange, buzzing tension, like thunder was waiting just beyond the tree line. The HOA meeting was set for 6 p.m. sharp, but I was there by 5:15, laptop charged, evidence folder in hand, and calm, dangerously calm. Karen was already at the front. Clipboard, fresh lipstick, fake smile, like she hadn't been the villain of the week. She avoided eye contact, but I didn't need her gaze. The room, that was mine now. Neighbors filtered in, slowly at first, then all at once. Not for the gardening update, not for the parking complaint segment. They came for the showdown. The board started with routine announcements. Karen pretended to listen, nodding like she actually cared about lawn edging regulations. But when Dana, the only board member who seemed to have a spine, cleared her throat and said, "Next item, unauthorized use of private property by HOA members." You could feel the air shift. Karen froze. Dana looked straight at me. "Marcus, you have the floor." I stood, clicked my laptop, and up on the projector screen flashed the first photo. My backyard, overrun with strangers, coolers, kids. Karen's laminated flyer pinned to my gate like she owned the place. Gasps, soft muttering. Slide 2, her Facebook post. "My amazing neighbor Marcus is opening his pool for our community summer swim series." I said nothing. Slide 3, Venmo screenshots. Payments labeled swim club snacks, Karen's pool fund, and even one that read K's lifeguard fee. And then, the footage. Karen laughing poolside, telling a parent, "Yeah, Marcus is totally fine with it, he's just shy." I paused the video and spoke. I didn't agree. I wasn't asked. This wasn't community spirit. It was hijacking, and I've got the receipts. The room was dead quiet. Karen stood, flustered. "That video is taken out of context. Marcus never said no." Dana raised a brow. "Karen, did you collect money from these events?" Karen faltered. "They were donations, for supplies. And were they reported?" Silence. I closed my laptop. "I don't want an apology," I said. "I want boundaries respected, rules followed, and truth finally spoken." That was it. Mic dropped, figuratively and emotionally. The board whispered among themselves. Karen looked like she wanted to sink through the linoleum. And me? I sat back down, hands steady, knowing something had just shifted in this neighborhood. This wasn't just about a pool. It was about who owns the story. And tonight, that pen was finally back in my hand. Part 9. The vote, the fallout, and the chair. Left empty. That night didn't end with applause. It ended with silence. Heavy, long, revealing silence. After my presentation, the board excused themselves to deliberate in private. Karen stood awkwardly near the snack table, clutching her now useless clipboard like a security blanket. No one approached her. Not even Doug from Lot 12, who used to call her Madam President like she ran the Pentagon. The room buzzed in low murmurs. Eyes darted between neighbors. Some looked embarrassed. Others, relieved. 10 minutes later, the board returned. Dana sat down, cleared her throat, and read from a prepared statement. After reviewing evidence and considering HOA bylaws, we find that Karen Miller acted outside her authority. She failed to obtain property owner consent, misrepresented HOA involvement, and collected funds not reported to the board. Karen shifted, hands clenched. Dana continued. Effective immediately. Karen Miller is removed from her position as HOA chair. She is barred from organizing events or representing the HOA in any capacity for the next 12 months. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And maybe that was the loudest moment of all. Someone in the back whispered, "Finally." Greg, the usually silent board member, added, "We'll also be issuing new guidance to protect homeowners from unauthorized use of property." The meeting adjourned quietly. No victory music, no fist pumps, just quiet nods, tired smiles, and a subtle, collective breath, like the neighborhood had been holding it in for months. As I walked out, 3 people stopped me. "Thank you. You saved us all. I've wanted to say something for years, but you actually did it." Karen stayed seated, alone, her clipboard face down on the table. I didn't say a word, didn't need to, because her silence was the loudest confession she'd ever make, and the chair she left behind, it stayed empty. And somehow, that empty chair felt more powerful than any position she'd ever pretended to hold. Part 10. The clipboard, the clean slate, and the sign that said everything 3 days after the vote. Karen vanished. No HOA bulletins, no passive-aggressive texts, no Instagram stories about reclaiming her narrative. Just silence. The clipboard, still sitting on the community table in the clubhouse, untouched. Someone taped a sticky note to it. Lost and never found. It stayed there for a week before someone finally tossed it. But even without her, echoes of Karen still lingered. Some neighbors still tiptoed around me, unsure whether to apologize or pretend they'd never cheered her on. I didn't care, because by now the pool wasn't just a pool, it was proof. Proof that if you stood your ground long enough, if you held on to facts, truth would eventually echo louder than gossip, and people noticed. One afternoon, I came home to a surprise. A fresh wooden sign staked beside my gate. Hand-carved, beautiful script. Private property, respect builds community. No name, no card. Just a quiet message from someone who got it. And then came the next surprise. A knock on my door. It was Dana, clipboard in hand, but hers wasn't plastic. It was sleek, organized, professional. "Marcus," she said, "the board wanted to ask if you'd consider running for the open chair position." I blinked. She smiled. "We've had enough Karens. We could use a little more common sense." I didn't answer right away, because the truth? I hadn't done any of this for power. But as I looked past her, at the pool that was finally mine again, at the street that no longer felt hostile, at the neighbors who waved instead of whispered, I realized something. This wasn't just about the past. It was about what kind of neighborhood we wanted next. And maybe, just maybe, it was time someone like me had the clipboard. But this time, it would be used for good. Epilogue. The quiet, the change, and the pool. That started it all summer melted into fall. The pool was still, no cannonballs, no chaos, just soft ripples and the whisper of wind through the trees. Lakeside pines had changed. You could feel it. In the way people stopped to chat during evening walks, in the way board meetings started on time and ended without drama, even in the way the newsletter finally talked about gardening tips instead of decorative uniformity enforcement. Karen's house? Still there, curtains drawn, lawn overgrown, no more flyers taped to mailboxes, just silence. No one knew if she'd sell, no one asked. The neighborhood had already moved on. As for me, I took Dana's offer. Not because I wanted the title, but because someone had to remind people that rules were meant to protect, not control. At the first meeting I chaired, I brought two things: a copy of the bylaws and a small box of donuts. "We're here to serve," I said, "not to scare." There was laughter, not nervous, not polite, real. Afterward, someone asked if the pool was open for a swim club again. I smiled. "Not today," I said, "but maybe someday, the right way." And that was enough. That night, I sat by the water, the same spot I'd once stood, helpless, angry, and outnumbered. Now, I wasn't alone anymore. The fight for my space had become something bigger, a movement, a reminder, a return to sanity, and above all, it proved that when people stand up, quietly, firmly, with facts in one hand and dignity in the other, even a backyard pool can start a revolution. Water